The fluorescent lights of the Super Saver hummed, a monotonous drone that bounced off the linoleum floor, creating a headache before your shift even started. That Tuesday afternoon, the air hung thick with the scent of day-old coffee and stale donuts, competing with the industrial-strength cleaner they used to mop up spills. Outside, Scottsdale was a frying pan, hitting 112 degrees easy, but inside, the AC blasted like a meat locker, making old Betty Lou pull her thin Super Saver vest tighter around her. The checkout line snaked back, 7 customers deep, and the whole place felt like a pressure cooker ready to blow. Betty Lou Johnson stood at register 9, her silver hair pulled back in a tight bun under her Super Saver visor. Her arthritic fingers, gnarled like old tree roots, moved with a practiced slowness across the scanner. She was 68 years old, a widow who'd raised 3 kids on her own dime after her husband bought the farm in a steel mill accident 23 years back. Her hands shook, a little palsy she just couldn't shake off, and her veins stood out on her skin like the tributaries of the Mississippi. But her eyes were sharp, kind, and full of patience. She needed this job. Social Security barely covered her medication, and her rent had jumped again last month. Before we get any further here, if you believe in respect for our elders, if you believe in justice for the helpless, and standing up against bullies, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from, because stories like this, they're a reminder that sometimes karma's a whole lot faster than you think. The manager came stomping down the aisle like a thundercloud in a polyester suit. Derek Simmons, 34 years old, with slicked back hair plastered to his skull, and a permanent sneer he wore like a merit badge. He'd been manager of this Super Saver for 2 years, and in those 2 years, he'd run 7 cashiers right out the door and sent 3 others crying to the break room. Corporate loved him because the numbers were up. He didn't give a damn how he got them. Betty Lou was wrestling with a customer's coupon. The barcode wouldn't scan, and the elderly woman behind the register was trying every trick she knew, squinting through her bifocals. "What's the hold-up here?" Derek barked, appearing behind Betty Lou like a buzzard circling roadkill. "You're backing up the whole line." Betty Lou's voice trembled just a little. "I'm sorry, sir. The coupon won't scan. I think there might be a system problem." Derek snatched the coupon from her hand, tried scanning it himself, and when it still didn't work, something inside him just snapped. Maybe it was the heat. Maybe it was the pressure from his district manager that morning. Or maybe Derek Simmons was just the kind of guy who got off on hurting people who couldn't fight back. He grabbed a yogurt container from the belt and threw it, hard, directly at Betty Lou's chest. It exploded on impact, splattering yogurt all over her uniform, her face and her silver hair. The cold white goo dripped down her chin as she stood there, frozen in pure shock. "Maybe that'll teach you to work faster, you useless old bag," Derek hissed, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I don't know why we even hire fossils like you. You should be in an assisted living facility, not wasting my time." The customers in line gasped. A few pulled out their phones and started recording. Betty Lou's hands shook violently now as she tried to wipe the yogurt from her face with her sleeve. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't cry. She'd learned a long time ago not to give men like that. The satisfaction. What Derek Simmons didn't know, what he couldn't possibly have guessed, was that Betty Lou Johnson had a grandson. His name was Big Joe Kowalski. He was 41 years old, 6'4", 260 pounds, and covered in tattoos from his neck to his knuckles. And he happened to be the president of the Iron Disciples Phoenix chapter. Betty Lou didn't call Joe. She'd never ask for help, not for herself, but her co-worker, Eleanor, who'd seen the whole thing, was dating a guy who rode with the club. The message traveled fast. By that evening, Joe knew exactly what had happened to his grandmother. Every detail, every word, every drop of yogurt. The next morning, at 10:15, the parking lot of Super Saver began to rumble. It started as a distant thunder, like a monsoon rolling in off the desert. Then the first motorcycles appeared at the entrance, one after another, their chrome gleaming in the Arizona sun. They kept coming and coming. 400 Harleys filled the parking lot within 15 minutes, their engines idling in perfect unison. The Iron Disciples patches blazed like fire in the morning light. Inside the store, customers stopped shopping, employees stopped working. Everyone moved to the windows to watch the sea of leather and steel spreading across the asphalt like a flood. Derek Simmons stood near the front, his face pale, his hands shaking. He recognized those patches. Everyone in Scottsdale knew what they meant. The glass doors opened and Joe walked in. Behind him came 40 of his brothers, their boots thundering on the polished floor. Joe was wearing his cut, his Iron Disciples patch visible for everyone to see. His arms were like tree trunks, his face like carved granite. But when he saw his grandmother standing near Register 9, still wearing her yogurt-stained uniform because she couldn't afford another one, something in his eyes softened. Then he turned to face Derek Simmons. "You threw food at my grandmother," Joe said. His voice was quiet, calm, more terrifying than any scream. "You called her names. You humiliated her in front of everyone." "Is that correct?" Derek's mouth opened and closed, like a fish out of water. He tried to speak, but only a wheeze came out. "I asked you a question." Derek nodded, frantically, backing up until he hit the wall. Joe didn't touch him. He didn't need to. Instead, he pulled out his phone and showed Derek the recording Elena had sent him. The video that was already on its way to Super Saver's corporate headquarters, every local news station, and 3 different lawyers. "You're going to apologize to my grandmother," Joe rumbled. "Then you are going to resign, and you're going to pray that the lawsuit my family is filing doesn't take every penny you have. Because I promise you this, Derek, if you ever disrespect an elderly person again, any elderly person, anywhere, I will know about it, and next time, there won't be any cameras." What happened next became local legend. Derek fell to his knees and apologized to Betty Lou in front of 400 Iron Disciples, sobbing like a child. He resigned on the spot. Corporate sent 3 vice presidents to apologize personally, along with a settlement offer that would pay Betty Lou's rent for the next 10 years. They also implemented new training policies to protect elderly workers from workplace abuse. But the most powerful moment came last. Big Joe Kowalski, this mountain of a man. Clad in leather and etched with ink, he walked up to his grandmother, Betty Lou Johnson, and ever so gently, he wrapped his arms around her, being careful not to squeeze too tight. "I love you, Grandma," he whispered, his voice a low rumble. "Nobody hurts my family." Betty Lou finally allowed herself to cry. Tears, tears of relief and love streaming down her face. As 400 motorcycles, Iron Disciples, roared their engines in a thunderous salute. A salute to strength, to family, and to unwavering respect. And before we wrap things up here, we have one special request for you. Comment below with the words, "Respect always." Show the world that you stand with Betty Lou, because sometimes the people who appear the most vulnerable are actually surrounded by the most powerful family. And sometimes, just sometimes, karma rides an iron horse. What would you do if you saw someone bullying an elderly worker at Super Saver? Would you stand by or would you stand up?